Hello everyone. I've got another pen review here for you guys. And today we've got the Moonman M300. So when I purchased this pen, it was not long after I purchased the M200. And honestly, I didn't see a lot of differences between the two pens initially, and other than like just some subtle differences in the pictures. But I will say, now that I've received the pen, I definitely can tell some differences. Now, I have yet to ink this pen up. I've just kept it inside its case and have not inked it up yet. So I'm taking it out of its case. We're going to set it down so you guys can see this pen. Now, in hand and in person, there is actually more differences than I realized. Number one, the first difference, and I'm going to grab my M200 and I'll just go ahead and put it in here for you guys. And then we'll put the M100 in here in a little bit for sizing comparisons. But the first difference you'll notice is the size. There's a huge difference in size between the two pens, and definitely in girth. Not as much in length, but girth overall, a big difference. This one, the M300, I kind of put in that category a little bit closer to a Conklin All-American. Not quite as big and definitely not as girthy, but kind of the shape and size somewhat similar. You'll notice that the rounded ends are just a little bit different. You have, again, it's like the farther they go with the pen, you get less rounded, or less pointed, I guess I should say, because we have our original M100 that was really that really classic kind of Schaefer type point, and then you get more rounded with your M200, and then your M300 again gets just a little bit more rounded and maybe almost a little bit flatter, at least on the top portion. So let's take our M200 out for just a moment and really focus on this pen. So starting at the top, of course, you'll notice we are rounded, but the clip on this pen is very stiff. That's one thing that I will say. The clip on the M300 is a little bit better, and you'll notice that it's a little bit farther away from the actual cap. My M200 is a pain in the rear end to get in and out of shirt pockets, in and out of different materials. It's very stiff, and it's kind of hard to grab and get it to go in. And it's one thing that really drives me crazy about this pen. I love this pen, but it drives me nuts getting in and out of a pocket. Whereas this one, because I think we have a little bit more leeway, while yes, it is stiff, it definitely slides in and out of a shirt pocket and things of that nature very easily. Now, you'll notice this has definitely got some just, I think, beautiful coloring in that acrylic. You'll notice a lot. There is definitely some chatoyancy there. You've got reds, blues, yellows, whites. I mean, there's just so many different colors. And, you know, seeing this in person, you really get an appreciation for how attractive this material is. The pictures and don't really do it justice. You also notice there is some transparent properties to it. You can actually see some of the threads and different things coming through there. Now, we do have Moonman branding like we do on our M200, but instead of having a double cap band, we just have a single cap band. Now, some of you may wish that the cap band was actually down farther where the cap and barrel meet, which I agree. I do kind of like that, because I think it kind of helps reinforce this area right here, but it's not necessarily a deal breaker for me. Now, again, putting these guys side by side just to give a little bit more of a comparison of them. The M300 just a little bit longer, but definitely girthier. When you hold both in hand and feel the weight, now granted, this one I haven't inked up, they feel about the same weight-wise. There's not a huge difference in weight necessarily to me, but you can definitely feel it when you're holding the pen. Now, uncapping it, takes a little over 1 3/4 turns to uncap. Now, another nice thing about this pen is we actually have a number 6 size nib. Now, it is still a Schmidt nib, but to give you a comparison, and I didn't even realize it in the pictures when I saw this pin, but it is actually a number 6 size nib, so it is a Schmidt number 6. And the section is definitely different. Each pin has had a different section. So this one had kind of what I was saying was kind of reminded me of that Franklin Christoph styled section where it's a little bit fatter back here, and then it has that hourglass shape towards the end and then flares right back out. This one's a little bit more elongated. It does have a very slight flare out at the end, just ever so slightly. You can barely even tell. It is a long section, so it does fit fairly nice in the hand. The threads are very, very coarse. They don't cut into you at all. There is a step down, but it is very nice. It kind of has like a lip to it. So it's not sharp whatsoever. So if you happen to hold it up really high, I don't think it's going to bother you at all. I like that. I will definitely say the pin feels on the lighter side, which I don't mind, but if you like a heavier pen, the M200 might feel a little bit better because I just feel like that pen, the material it just feels a little thicker, a little bit more, I don't want to say premium per se, but just it feels heavier. Now you can, of course, post this pen. Now if you post it, it does make it very long. If you have very large hands, it might be a pen though that would be very comfortable for you to post. Post securely, it's not going anywhere. Does not post again very deeply, but to me it doesn't create a ton of weight as far as making it back heavy. Now taking off the barrel, we've got your Schmidt converter. We've seen this converter setup on several Chinese Schmidt setups. We've got this collar here. Now, one thing, I did take the converter out. I took the nib unit, everything apart to see if this collar actually, moved or was removable very easily, and it's not. It's in there pretty good. I don't know if it's glued in there or how it's placed, but I've had a couple of pins. I mean, LIY is a prime example of these type of setups where they just totally remove. I've also had my N2, I think it was, no. Oh my goodness, I'm getting all the Moonman pins mixed up. I had one of my Moonman pins that this portion here you could actually just completely remove. It was friction fit, but it removed. But just something to note, not necessarily saying it's extremely important, but I did want to note it. All in all, this is the pin. Again, very attractive, very nice, large pen. We'll do some additional sizing comparisons just real quick between the other two, the M100, the M200, and just kind of show them side by side. So here we see all three pins, and of course you'll notice that, so we've got your M300 here on the bottom, which is the largest of the three, your M200, and then your M100 on top. All three, in my opinion, somewhat different designs. I mean, you go from the M100 that's really like a classic Schaefer type design, and then you just kind of get a little bit different on each one. And I think that they all three kind of offer a different look and different feel for all three pens. I think they improved on just some certain subtle things on each pen. The M100, one of my biggest complaints about the pen is it has that cross-threading issue. It's still a pen that I enjoy using quite a bit, but it does have that cross-threading issue. They fixed that with the M200, and I don't have any issues with the M300. I was playing with it quite a bit the other day, just taking the cap off, recapping, and doing that several times. No issues whatsoever. So they fixed that issue. Now let's look at the pins now uncapped. Now here we see all three pins uncapped. Now you've got, again, very different in design aspects between all three pins. You've got a kind of that traditional slim section here that tapers down and then flares out. You have, again, a different section design here completely with the M200. And then you have just a nice kind of fat, wide section with your M300. You also have these two would essentially have the same nibs. Now I've put a vintage Waterman nib on my M100. And so that's going to, of course, throw things off just a little bit. But just to kind of show you those sections up close. Now the other thing is, this one has a slight step down, is a little bit sharp, but you don't notice it too much, and the threads are nice. This one, again, this one has a much sharper step down. But it generally to me doesn't bother me at all, and I don't typically hold it where it's cutting into my finger at all. This one here, I think design wise, I think is nice because how they've done this step down, it's a little bit more tapered, so it doesn't feel sharp at all. And this section again is a little bit longer. Again, if you like a larger pen, this is a good option to go with. Now, these other two to me are I don't find issues at all. And you can say, I mean, you can do things with the nibs. I mean, this is like the third nib I've had in this pen, and all three nibs have performed well, this one being no exception. So just again, kind of showing that. Now I'm going to show them to you guys posted so you can kind of see that as well, and kind of get a perspective from that. All right, so now we see all three pins again in their posted form. Now, this is another thing I think they kind of improved on the design from the original M100. As much as I like the M100, it fits my hands perfectly. It may not fit everybody's hands, and it doesn't really post securely. It does post technically, but the cap moves around a lot. It will pop off sometimes while you're writing, especially depending upon where it fits in this webbing of your hand, or the pearly cue, whatever they call this. If it's constantly rubbing and moving around, that cap's eventually going to pop off. That's one thing that is a bit disappointing with the M100, where they kind of improved that with the 200 and the 300, where them being, in my opinion, a little bit more postable, and it really being a nice secure fit. Now, of course, you notice a difference in size as well. So the M300, much larger overall in size. The 200 and 100 are about the same in their posted forms. So not a huge difference there. But again, the one M100, not necessarily one that I would say is meant to be posted. Now let's take a closer look at a Schmidt number 6 size nib and kind of compare that setup with, say, a Jowo, and kind of give you guys an idea there. Okay, zoom in just a little bit more so you guys can see this a little bit better. But here we have actually two number 6 size nibs essentially. So we have our Schmidt here, we have a Jowo. It's actually a Goulet nib that I have in this one up here. So kind of comparing the two a little bit, and I'm not a nib expert by any means whatsoever, but I know some people are not huge fans of Schmidt nibs. I know there's, like a lot of things, there's plenty of people out there that love Schmidt nibs. I'm kind of hot and cold. I have some that I enjoy writing with quite a bit, and I have a lot that I don't. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these apart so you guys can kind of see how everything is set up. So here, of course, is our Schmidt holder right there for our nib and feed. Now this, of course, is not the same nib, the exact same nib that is in this pen. However, it is essentially the exact same setup, the design, everything is exactly the same. So one thing that kind of is a little bit disappointing with the Schmidt nib is the fact that they have this cutout here. So whenever, if you wanted to change out the nib, it would be very difficult because that cutout fits perfectly with this feed. So you couldn't just necessarily take a Jowo nib, for instance. So we'll take this one out. If I can get it out, of course. So take this one, and it wouldn't necessarily fit on here well. So first things you'll notice, it kind of slides back and forth, doesn't really fit there. But once you hit it, get it to where it hits that little section, you'll notice there's just not enough for it to actually work. There's too much nib, not enough feed, and the setup just won't work. Now, comparing the two feeds, they're a little bit similar. I mean, in the overall design aspects of them, you of course see this really narrow channel here on both of them. They of course have a lot of fins. The backside to me kind of looks somewhat similar as well as far as the overall design. So the feeds are not that big of a difference, but if I can get it up here just right, you can see that cutout right there on the Schmidt feed. Whereas, of course, the Jowo feed has no cutout at all. It's just very streamlined. Now, could you fit a Schmidt nib with the Jowo setup? And in my opinion, you probably can make this work. You know, question is, will it fit inside of this, and it's a bit tight, but it would work. It would probably work. I'm not going to jam it in there. But my point of what I'm trying to say is you might have almost a better chance of getting that to fit inside of the Yovo feed, or with the Yovo feed, than you would the other way around. Now, the next question is, would a Yovo feed and nib fit inside of this Schmidt collar? So obviously you'll notice that if I wanted to try and switch these out on the pen, they have different thread points. Everything as far as the setup is exactly different. So this would not thread into my M300, or really any, or I'm sorry, the Yovo would not fit into my M300 or any pen that takes this type of setup, because the threads are just, the design is different. So let's take a Yovo feed, that's what this is here, Yovo nib, put them together, line them up, make sure that they're good, and let's just see if they fit inside of here properly. So I've got everything lined up. I'm going to put it in there, make sure the back side looks good. It looks pretty good from here, and surprisingly it fits. Now, but the question is going to be, if I was to put this inside of the M300, would it work? So we're going to find out here in a few minutes. So before I do any of this, I am going to do a writing sample with the original nib and everything that's on the pen, so that way you guys can see that. And then I'll put this in the pen, kind of re-ink it at that point, and just see if the nib actually performs or not. All right, everyone, we are back. So the ink that I chose to use, real quick, I'll show that to you. It's a Roshizuku, a Pilot ink, Mami G. It's a nice red ink. We use this quite a bit. All right, so we again have the original Schmidt nib, have not changed it out. So we're going to do just a quick writing sample. So this is the Moonman M300. I will say this nib, just this initial writing, it is very smooth. There is just really no feedback. I'm surprised. I sound bad, but I mean, I've had a lot of Schmidt nibs that have been a little bit difficult and kind of frustrating to use. But this one really feels nice on the paper. It really just glides across the paper. It feels really good. Very smooth. All right, do a quick writing. There you go. Do a little bit of a wetness test. Pretty nice, not bad. Will it do reverse writing? Yeah, it works. Definitely do it. So not a bad nib. This is actually really nice. Of course, it's a Schmidt nib, so you can get just a tiny bit of line variation. It's not, of course, meant for that, so it's not something I would definitely recommend, but you, hypothetically speaking, could get just a little bit of line variation. Not much, but you can get some. So now I'm going to take this nib off, kind of re-ink the pen up. We're going to try that Yovo nib. Again, it's just a little bit of an experiment. The only reason why I'm showing you guys this is if you have an issue with your Schmidt nib and you're kind of at a loss, should I just get rid of the pen? What should I do? Might give you another option, at least, if nothing else. So that's really kind of the point behind it. So I'm, again, going to re-ink it, take this nib out, re-ink it up. I really like this nib though, so this nib will probably actually wind up going back in this pen because it is awfully, awfully smooth, awfully, awfully nice. One of the nicest Schmidt nibs I've used. All right, I'm going to be back in just a moment. All right, so I figured I'd kind of show you guys this. So I've got my little towel here. Towel's got tons of ink on it, so I've got it started. So we're going to unscrew this unit here. I'm going to set it on my towel over here. And we've got that little experiment that I have. So again, looks like it's in there pretty good. I mean, everything's met up pretty well, so we're going to screw this one in. Everything fits in there nicely. I don't see any issues or anything. Now we're going to put back on our converter here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab the ink, and I'm actually just going to kind of re-expel ink back into that, and then we're going to fill it again. First off, make sure it does fill, which it is. Yay! Redo it one more time. Of course, as you guys saw, I've got a goulet nib on there, but it is working so far. Let me set my ink off to the side. I'm going to wipe this off. I've got so much stuff on my desk. I have pens everywhere on my desk right now because I'm like working on a few different reviews today, so you'll have to forgive me. I'm a little bit more disorganized than I like being. All right, I think we're about ready to try this out. We're going to see what happens. Fingers crossed. So this now is a Jowo extra fine nib. This is actually a goulet nib, but it is inside of a Schmidt. It would help if I could remember how to spell. Housing. There may be videos on YouTube about this. I have no idea. I just thought I would try it out. I was surprised that it fit as easily as it did, but it seems to work. Now, I'll continue to mess around with this, but as of right now, no issues. The feed's not running dry. Just keep writing. Now this is an extra fine nib. It's a little bit more feedback, but it's very nicely tuned. I mean, I have not gotten a goulet nib where it didn't work well. Doing some kind of fast writing, see how well it keeps up. And so far, it is doing very well. So there you have it. So not only is this a review for the M300, but it's a little bit of an experiment to see how this works, and it is working. So let me know in the comment section what you guys think. Let me know. I haven't looked on, I haven't tried to search to see if anybody's done this. I'm sure I'm not the first person to think of this, so I'm not going to sit here and act like I've thought of something magnificent. However, it did kind of surprise me that it was that easy to do this. So if you want to switch out the nib and you're a little bit concerned, I wish I would have thought of that before on my LIY pen. It would have saved me a little bit of money. I could have just tossed a Jowo nib on there and been done with it. But I'm glad I figured that out now. So everyone, I hope you enjoyed this review. I really like this pen. I'm not going to sit here and say that I love it way more than these other two. I love all three of them for different reasons, but this is a nice pen. If you want a bigger, girthier pen, larger nib, if you're one of those type of people that want something like that, this would be a nice pen to get. Pricing wise, when I bought it, it was around $50. I have seen it as low as $40. I've seen it as high as $60. So you're just going to have to shop around and really try and get the best price for you. I did buy mine off from Bobby Pins off his Etsy website. I don't know if he still has any of these available. They might already be sold out. Maybe reach out to him to see if he'll have more that he's going to restock if it's not available. But I've never had a bad transaction from Bobby at all. So he would definitely be someone I'd tell you to reach out to and try. Again, everyone, take care. I will see you guys later. Bye-bye.